Greetings. My name is Bob Beatty, UC Farm Advisor for Kings County tree crops, and I have with me today Chris Wiley of AgriWorld. We are now at stage 3 in pruning a mature tree, and there are not as many whips in mature trees as there are in young trees. And Chris, if you would, go ahead and just point out this one whip that we have found in this one tree. Chris, point out the cut that was made further down on that limb that most likely stimulated this vigorous growth.
There's a heading cut right there.
There.
A couple years ago, and then we got 1-year-old growth, and then this last year it took off. So this one's going to be headed about 20 inches above the buds.
Up in that area there are little tiny buds, and those are the vegetative buds. And then below that are larger buds, and those are the fruit buds. The larger fruit buds are born further back on the vigorous whips, and it is very important that you leave vegetative buds above the fruit buds. Otherwise, it will very likely not push a dormant bud further back on the whip, and hence it will basically fruit 1 year and then die.
The next.
We're now moving to compressing the canopy, pushing it back and up, and Chris has his pole shears on a shoot that is now too long. He's going to perform a heading cut.
Without this cut, this thing will end up down here next year.
And that is because all of the fruit wood is being borne on the tips. It keeps growing further and further out because of the apical dominance. And so if you don't head that back to keep it somewhat upright, it's going to lay down. So Chris will now perform that heading cut. And again, you can see that these cuts are relatively small, but it's many, many small cuts that then make up a properly pruned, mature pistachio tree. You see that Chris has selected this one limb on the outside.
All this weight just pull this limb down, and we want to keep this limb in closer to the trunk. And it'd be just a lot of small cuts. There's another good one right there.
Okay. Heading back the fruit wood.
Another one.
He's compressing the fruit wood.
Another one right there. Very important. Looks like it's not doing anything, but those limbs will be there. They'll gain girth, strength, and there will be harvestability.
The trees don't develop girth or diameter in their limbs very rapidly. And when they grow vigorously, they don't have enough strength to keep them upright, so this aggravates the tendency for the tree to open up. And that's why people who don't prune regularly wind up with the canopy all flat, and the tree doesn't shake very well. Notice how long this is and how leggy it is. And if I don't prune that, it's not going to shake come harvest time. So I'm stiffening it by heading back to lateral.
Separation cut between two framework limbs.
Okay, there's an example of where there's a little too much traffic. Doing some what we call zone pruning, where he's trying to distribute the main structural branches of the tree into their own area so that they have sufficient light and that they're not competing excessively. Emphasize the importance of dividing the pruning process into stages. Starting off first with the hand shears and going around the bottom of the tree. Stage 2 was to then move around the tree and perform what saw cuts had to be done, especially on older trees whose lower fruit wood is now compromised and ready for removal. And then stage 3 was to move up into the upper part of the canopy and perform tipping cuts on your whips. And then finally moving around the canopy with your pole shears and perform heading cuts on your fruiting branches to stiffen them, push them back into the catch frame area, and then also make some separation cuts to allow light into areas where the limbs are too congested. And those types of cuts are the traditional thinning cuts. So with that, we appreciate your attention. Hope that you've learned something from this video.